Welcome to Millstrip Minutes. I'm Nick. Today I'm back here at Bull Moose Guns in Mint Hill, North Carolina, taking a look at a few of the guns that they're going to have up for sale here before long. And today we're taking a look at a American icon, a true American classic, the Colt Single Action Army, model 1873, the Colt Peacemaker. These pistols were ubiquitous in the American West. This is what the U.S. Army was carrying in many different configurations from 1873 up through the 1890s. However, it did start to get replaced with the introduction of the Colt model, the Colt Army model 1892. We don't have one of those today. Hopefully I'll get to take a look at one of those at some point and kind of fill out the roster of U.S. Marshal pistols that I get to handle. But the Single Action Army is a ubiquitous pistol. It was an absolute game changer. Going back to the late 1860s, you were really starting to see the introduction of cartridge revolvers. However, the Single Action Army became the one that was the quintessential cartridge revolver to come out of the late 1800s. This one in particular has a 7.5-inch barrel and is in what is referred to as the cavalry configuration. I know there were other ones, but I'm not super up on the different configurations of the Single Action Army in U.S. military service. This one, however, is U.S. property marked, and we'll take a closer look here in a minute and look at all the different markings and what makes this one kind of interesting. So now we're back here looking at the pistol, and I can show you up close a little bit better, give you a better idea of how this thing works if you're not already familiar with it. So the Single Action Army refers to it being a single action revolver, whereas you have to pull the hammer back for every shot you take with it. I'm going to ease it back. As opposed to modern double action revolvers that have a longer trigger pull, where the first part of the trigger pull will automatically advance the cylinder and the second part will drop the hammer. To load the Single Action Army, you would pull the hammer back 2 clicks until you get to the loading position. That allows the cylinder to spin freely. Then you take your loading gate and flip it open, and you would... There's 2 schools of thought to loading this. There's the school of thought, which is that you load it with 6 rounds and carry it on the safety notch, which there's a good amount of historical evidence pointing towards its use in the period, and many people doing so. However, in more recent decades, it's been believed that the way to load this revolver would be what is referred to as the cowboy load or the John Wayne load, which is 5 rounds with your hammer sitting on an empty chamber. And that would be load 1 round, skip a cylinder, and then load the other 4, close it, pull the hammer back, let it down, and now the hammer is on an empty chamber. Because it was believed that because the firing pin, which I'll show you here, because the firing pin protrudes slightly past the face of the back of the revolver, the recoil shield of the revolver, that can hit the primer on a cartridge, which is very possible. But on the first notch you have a safety notch which locks the cylinder in place and pulls the firing pin free of the recoil shield. Now, if you've fired your 6 shots and want to unload, I'm already on the safety notch, but I pull it back 1 more notch to the unload position, and from there you would take it and push down on this rod here, and you'd eject each round individually like so. And that's just a basic look over how you'd go about clearing this revolver. Mechanics out of the way, now we're going to talk about this one in particular. According to the research that was done on this revolver, this is a fairly late contract. This revolver was made in 1890, which is kind of difficult to see, but I'll show you the best picture I can get of the date here on the grip. And that date's also corroborated with the serial number. The trigger group matches to the frame, however, it does not have the same serial number as on the cylinder, although that might be proper to the gun and correct and original. I just don't know these guns terribly well. This was a revolver that was sub-inspected by Ronaldo A. Carr, and you'll first see his inspector proof mark there on that grip, which is kind of faint, but I'll get you a better picture there. He also has a proof mark here on the bottom of the frame, here on the other side of the barrel, I'll show you up closer, and here on the cylinder. Based on the serial number, oh yeah, there's the US property mark, by the way. This, because of these things though, this points this revolver to have been delivered to the US military in one of the last batches of single action armies to be accepted in the 1890s, as I said before, the acceptance of the 1892 Colt Army. However, these would still soldier on, and these would still be famously used be carried by people like Wyatt Earp, Teddy Roosevelt. George S. Patton had one, however, it was made much later after this. These revolvers took part in the Indian Wars. These revolvers fought on San Juan Hill. They fought in the Philippines. Maybe one of them even made it to the trenches of France in World War I. I'm doubtful of that, but anything's possible. I mean, hey, I did just mention about a guy carrying one in World War II. But that's a brief overlook of this particular single action army, a look at a true American classic. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.